Our next guest onto the stage is a man who needs no introduction, so we'll give him no introduction. It's Mickey Adams. Where do you want to sit, Mickey? Because we've got to get a booster seat. Johnny High is the next one to come up on the stage. Johnny? You want to sit that side? Brilliant. Former player, coach and manager, Greg Strong, please. Our head of recruitment, Captain Walken. Callum Burson, assistant football academy manager and player development at Brooke House. And last but not least, the man they call Mad Dog, it's Martin Allen. Okay, so we have a debate to come on technology in football and other various issues. But first, I would like to welcome to the stage the MD of Brooke House College. It is Giles Williams.
Thank you, Jeff, for the warm welcome to you all here at the Treetops Hotel in Market Harborough. Thanks so much for everyone genuinely who's come out to support this inaugural event of this type. And I appreciate it's a Monday night, and I'm sure many of you have got other obligations which you've kindly forsaken to be with us. So huge thanks for that. So what's tonight about? As I said, it's the first time that we have undertaken this obligation, and I think the key to it is I spend quite a lot of time with parents at the school, at our college, and I had a meeting with a group of parents on Friday afternoon at Brooke House, and I'm looking out and I can see a few faces. I think it will resonate with what I'm saying. It's very difficult being a parent of a child who wants to become a footballer, and it's very, very difficult being a coach of a child who wants to become a footballer. And a lot of you as parents will have undergone big sacrifices to support your children in their hopes and in their aspirations and in their dreams. And we're also aware at Brooke House that it's not only is it a difficult process to guide your child towards becoming a professional footballer, it's also quite an opaque one as well. And obviously myself and my colleague Mickey, the boys from the football academy, we do whatever we can to support the children in fulfilling their dreams. But for some time, I've realised that parents need as much support as they possibly can. My sister-in-law, my nephew Gabriel, who's 9 years old, plays for Balham FC in South London, and my sister-in-law washes the kit every week for every child in the team, because she reckons that if she carries on doing that, then they won't drop Gabriel. And my brother, who's a KC barrister, sometimes gets particularly upset that his shirts aren't very newly washed and ironed when he's got to go to court, but the Balham under 9s kit is absolutely gleaming. So those are the lengths that people go to, and I know parents who are driving 4, 6, 8 hours a week to help their children, to support their children. I know those who are helping with private trainers with their fitness and monitoring their nutrition, and it's an amazing testimony to those parents, and their dedication in support to their children is great to see. So Isfan and I, with some support from Mickey, we were kind of like, how do we level the playing field? How do we give the children the opportunity? And through Dev, who's familiar with some of the innovators who implemented Y Scout as a scouting tool, I saw that Y Scout was working well in the pro game, but for safeguarding reasons, we couldn't implement anything like that on school level. And hence, School Scout was born. The idea that was in our minds became a reality thanks to Mr. Yanni Dupai. I don't know. It's a wonderful situation to be in, to have a friend, and it's his friend's friend, not mine, who's an app developer. Because if you want to try anything exciting, if you want to develop an app, then yeah, you'll try it. I mean, that was how we started, and we went out for a long Italian meal, and we discussed all sorts of apps actually. Tinder, various apps, and their utility, and School Scout was born. And the idea is that the children can tend their own garden, they can put their own profile up there, they can add their own video, and it's completely safeguarding friendly. If professional clubs, and I hope guys like Greg will go and will take our invitation to look at what we put online, so that if we play a game and a scout sees a player, then they've got the opportunity to access the profile in a safe way through contact with our football academy manager and his team, Callum included. So a very brief welcome, and more importantly, thanks. And without further ado, to tell you more about our exciting new products, I'm going to hand you on to our friend Yanni Depai. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So my name is Janusz Dupai, and let me introduce myself. I will be shorter than my football career. I played professional football when I was young. I played in the first division in Hungary, and I also played in the France division. And somehow I became an under 21 national team player in Hungary. I don't know how. And I quit football when I was 25 years old, and somehow I would like to. I wanted to stay close to the sport, but I didn't know how. That time I received a job offer from the biggest Central European energy trader company, and I accepted this offer, and I worked for them for a couple of years, and I developed for them internal sales supporting systems, and I developed for them also internal analytic and reporting systems. In that time, we use a lot of excellent systems which help us a lot for do our job professional and efficient. That time I knew that a lot of sport teams don't use any professional software to manage their team. So basically, most of them did not use any sport software. The coaches make their training plans on a piece of paper, so it wasn't so effective. And that was the first inspiration for me to create a sport analytic and management system. And 8 years ago, I created my first application, which was Match Meeting. It had 4 different modules: my training planner, player rating system, a calendar, and a video analysis tool. And 4 years ago, I released my second sport application, which was NetLead. NetLead is the mobile application version of Match Meeting system. It had the same modules, and we could use the hardware of the smart devices. For example, we could make live video analysis using the camera of the smartphone or the tablet. So that was NetLead system. Could you go to the next one? And our journey with Brooke College started in 2017. Since that year, the coaches of Brooke College using the Match Meeting application on a daily basis, I guess. I thought about Match Meeting a lot, and let me introduce it with a short video.
NetLead is a compact design and analytical tool for managing sports associations and individual athletes. The application assists in the following: planning workouts and training loads, event management and communication, injury prevention, rehabilitation, designing tactical elements and making them understandable, video analysis and sharing of analyzed materials with athletes, nutrition, sleep, and training load analysis, monitoring the development of athletes, the analysis of athlete feedbacks, live video analysis, and creating and sharing video workout plans with athletes. The application also has its own library of video exercises, predefined regeneration protocols, food, drink, and calorie database, and many other features. Netflix is a Netflix.
Thank you. So in the last 8 years, we worked together with the Hungary national team. For example, we had more than 200 sport clubs in our partnership. We worked more than 30 countries. And not only football, we had partners from different sports. For example, handball, we worked together with the Champions League winner team, Julietto. We also had teams from NFL, from the US college football, but also we have national champion in basketball, volleyball teams. In 2022, Jazz had the idea of School Scout, and we had the purpose because Brooke House has a lot of talented players. Our goal was to create an application where the external scouts can access to the players' profiles and video materials of them, giving the players the opportunity to draw the attention of scouts and support teams. So that was our purpose. We have to go to the next. Okay, School Scout is available on the web, so you can use this web application, but you can also download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. So we developed it for iOS and Android devices also. But you can download it for free. You can use it for free, but before you use, you need an access for this application. You have to request access from Brooke House College. You need only your email address, and if they register your email address, you will receive an email which will contain your password and some information about School Scout, for example, the web URL and the application URLs, downloading URLs. Okay. The app content, if you log into this application, you will immediately see a list view of the Brooke House players. You will see the active players of Brooke House College with some information, for example, position and physical informations and nationality informations. You can filter the players by born year and position, and you can also sort the players by ABC, the height, and some physical measurement information. If you select a player, you can reach the player's profile. The player profiles has 4 different sections. The first one is the personal data, where you can see the birth data, nationality, position. The second part is the physical data part, where you can see some physical measurement informations. Here we have 5 different information, but maybe later we'll have other physical measurements info. The third one is the video highlight part. Every player will have a highlight into the system, and our system has a video player part, so you can play like this video highlight, and later Brooke House will upload full matches also. So you can play back the highlight video, and also if you want, you can play back the full match also. And on the bottom right corner, you can see a voting action button, which is for if you want to contact to Brooke House, you have to push this button and you So this is the video player part. It's quite simple. And some information about technical background. I'm very proud that the school scout system is always up to date because it has the same database as matchmaking and athlete application. So the coaches of Brooke House College using every day the matchmaking and athlete system and the school scout fetching the data from these systems. So the school scout system will be always up to date. Okay, the other technical background is about the video part. There are two different ways to upload videos. Highlight videos or full matches. The first one is to when a coach create a highlight video using a video editor or export and upload to school scout. This is the first way. And the second way is to upload full matches to an athlete system. The players has the right to tag their actions by watching the game, and after it, when they finished this tagging part, the application will immediately generate highlights automatically. The coach can check this highlight video, and if it hasn't any error, they can upload to school system. We plan some upcoming updates, for example, live match broadcasting, or we could give rights to the player to access the school scout system, and they can tag their actions inside the school scout application. So if they have a full match on the profile, they can tag their actions, and you can play back only the highlight of the player based on this tags. Okay, and let me show you a demo video how it works. So this is the first page, the login page. Here you can use the filter part and sorting part. Next to the name, that red icon indicates that this profile has video highlight. And you can play that video highlight. Thank you. If you have any questions, I will be here. Okay, I will stay here so later if you have questions. So.
Awesome. Hello. Yanni, thank you very much. Please give it up for Yanni once again. A very good explanation of exactly what is happening with this application. It's a very different world, football these days, in many different areas, but particularly with things like this in terms of how players are brought into football clubs. I just want just to go around the panel just to let you know exactly who everybody is. So we have Dev Kumar here, who is an internationally experienced sports lawyer and academic with previous experience as a football intermediary. Next to him is Rob Tanner, football journalist for 20 years, currently with The Athletic, and also writer of 5,000 to 1, the story of how Leicester City miraculously won the Premier League in 2016. And I would say it's probably the greatest story of all time and one of the greatest books of all time. Alongside me is Mickey Adams, former player and manager, notably guided Leicester into the Premier League when the club was in administration in 2003, and of course is now technical director here at Brooke House College.
I thought that was a better story than the.
It was an incredible achievement with a club and administration keeping everybody together. But no, 5,000 to 1 was better. Yeah. We have Callum Burston, some of you will know, of course, Assistant Football Academy Manager and Player Development at Brooke House. Next to him, Johnny High, Higher Education Course Leader at Loughborough College in Applied Sports Science and Management. Of course, sports science is a huge thing in football these days. We have Greg Strong, former player, coach and manager, played in the top flight in England, Scotland and Wales. I know some of you are probably thinking you didn't realise that Wales had a top flight, but he did. And he's currently head of recruitment at Morecambe. And Martin Allen, former QPR, West Ham and Portsmouth midfielder, manager of various clubs. Barnet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many times? 5 times. 5 times manager of Barnet. And as referenced earlier, his nickname is Mad Dog, which is something we may or may not delve deeper into as the evening goes on. Callum, I want to come to you first on the subject of these apps, because it's fascinating what Yanni was saying about this app. What apps do you use at the moment, Match Meeting or whatever it is? How important is that? Because obviously we have parents here whose children are here, they perhaps want to know a bit more about the technology that you use to help them progress, the benefits, how effective is it for the students?
Yeah, so Match Meeting is basically the hub of almost everything we do to start with. Each player has a profile on it, as Yanni's obviously spoke about earlier. And we work obviously game to game, day to day, using the system. So whether it's giving feedback from games, whether it's giving ratings to the players, or going through analysis of those games the next day, whatever that might be, that's really the centre of what we start with. Particularly then around the player curriculum and building on from that. Obviously, bringing in this app now with School Scouts, just another way for us to continue to develop and grow and be able to, for our students to be able to showcase themselves. I think that's a big thing for us, is that we've got such pool of players across a range of different ages, and yes, we go in and play these pro clubs, but how can we continue to showcase them and what they do?
And how much do the kids, the young players, the young adults, how much do they embrace this technology? Because obviously they are very much of a tech generation.
Yeah, they love it, whether it's an analysis session and you're going through clips, highlights, good or bad. They really do get involved, and I think obviously more recently them being able to go and actually add on clips and highlight themselves through the Netflix app has been a real introduction for them, further what they can do on their own analysis and analysing their own performances and aiding their own development.
I'm interested, Martin, in terms of when you were managing and you were bringing players into a football club, there wasn't really this technology, or maybe it was some of the sports science was starting to come in. How useful would some of this have been in terms of, we want to know how, for example, if you want a centre half, you don't necessarily want a 5'1" centre half. They might be a very good technical player, but you generally will go for a bigger player. This technology, how would you have used it?
Well, I couldn't, because I can't even turn on my laptop. I'm not the best at all that. It's outstanding. The work and what you put together, I thought that was wow. And with the information that you've just given us about these young players being introduced into their stats and their figures and their performances, and how they can regulate their own performance, is certainly a change from the old days when it would have been a few words from the manager. And as I progressed, we did a couple of the clubs that I worked at have software that was given out by the video analyst, so the players could go home and watch the game over the weekend and see their own performance. And often on the team coach on the way home from matches, players with their laptops would be sitting watching the game, whereas when I played, players were sitting on the team coach watching different types of films that you don't want your kids to see. So it has changed significantly. So when I managed, when I played, And this has been a real eye opener, and it's just outstanding what I was looking at over my shoulder a minute ago.
And Greg, you know, you're head of recruitment at Morecambe, and obviously we're at Salford before that. How much have you been using this kind of technology when it comes to bringing in players? Obviously, we're talking sort of League One, League Two, etc., rather than people will obviously think about in the Premier League, in the Championship, and getting all these players from abroad. How do you approach it?
I was the same. I was really impressed. Very similar to YSCO, which is a system that we use from the professional point of view. Very similar to player profiles. A lot of data on there as well. And it compiles leagues of top performers in each league before you even start third, basically. But I think, touching on what Martin just said, I think players have got a thirst for knowledge now as well, and a thirst for competitor. So the fact that the players can access their own clips, and like I said, they get to send their own clips as well, from a sort of development point of view, I think it's massive as well. Really, really good.
And Johnny, you're obviously involved in very much in sports science. You will have, again, seen how this technology has progressed over the years. How important is the sports science? I mean, it sounds like an obvious question, but just how significant is it?
Yeah, it's massive. You know, I think everyone's made really good points there that it probably hasn't been in the past, and that's come on leaps and bounds. So from our perspective, what I think is really interesting with the app is that gives the students, we work with autonomy of their own performance, their own highlights. They can use that along with other sports science. So if we get them in the gym, obviously working a lot of football, which you've probably done this before, but not understood quite why they are, you know, being measured in this way, running on this treadmill for how long, breathing into this big mask. So actually by sort of teaching and learning alongside them, saying, this is why we do that. That'll tell you this will tell you this, maybe you need to improve here. You go, oh, I understand that. So we actually use our strategy at college as well, so we can teach them how to do talent ID as well. So when they look at their own content that's on the app, they'll be able to see, oh, that's the same move that, say, Erling Haaland did, or something that, and I can analyse that, and then analyse what I did. And it just gives them a better footing that at the age of 19, 20, 21 that people previously didn't have.
Are there some players perhaps who are kind of like, listen, I know what I'm doing, I'm fine, I know my body. Do you get that at all? Or is it pretty much universally buy into it?
I think we all get that a little bit, as in, I think I can probably go out tonight and still run a certain amount of KM in this time period. I think they quickly learn, especially one of our tests called Wing Day Test, if you want to look it up. It doesn't end well for people who don't take it seriously. So I think if with the right sort of prep and buy-in from the students, and a lot of them are sort of talented athletes as well across the campus, so it's happened sort of drilled into them from quite a young age probably. So from them maybe more buy-in. There's always some people who will always try and prove the machine's wrong, but the machine's rarely wrong.
Dad, obviously you mentioned about being a sports lawyer and an academic, but obviously you worked as an intermediary as well. How keen were you to encourage those that you work with that you need to take on board this fantastic technology that has come in?
First of all, good evening to everybody, and thank you, Brooke, for the invitation, and thank you, Jeff, for hosting this excellently.
I've no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just, we'll see how it goes.
You're pulling it off, but no, taking it back several years, because I stopped intermediary work, or what was previously known as agent work, and it's now going to be called agent work again officially. I stopped that about 7 or 8 years ago. However, this was, I would say, around the earlier period of when Greg mentioned that you guys use Y-Scout at Morecambe. Y-Scout, I believe, was founded in 2011, more or less, and then it started really coming into play probably around 2014, 2015. And it was something that I was advocating to players and even agents that we collaborated with all of the time, because from an intermediary perspective, it made my job a lot easier. More complicated in terms of the volume, because I had to write more detailed reports about what a player could or could not do, how they might or might not add value to your particular team, but easier in the fact that I could make more clear conclusions about why you need to sign that player, as opposed to simply saying, he looks good, you might as well take a punt on him, which, putting it in a crass way, is leaning more in the direction of what a signing might have been like 15, 20, 30 years ago, the eye test, as we call it. And I'm not criticizing that for one moment, but when you've got all of this information at your fingertips, it will be remiss of you not to use it. And increasingly, you see at the top levels of the game, it's being used all the time. And now that I've moved away from being an agent in the last years, or doing agency work in the last years, and focusing solely on legal work, we now see that filtering into how we have to draft and deal with contracts as well. So it's completely infiltrated the game at every level.
So how do the contracts change then with this technology in a nutshell?
The fax, funnily enough, FIFA was officially using the fax machine until 2018. It's still there. So
There's any young people in a fax machine? I don't mind. Just ask who they're asking now.
But look, I think if we put it in a very, very simple way, okay, the more information you have, the more variables you have. And the more variables you have, the more complicated your contract will be. I think that's a very, very simple way of saying it. And from that perspective, you can draw the inference that contracts have become more and more detailed and longer as the years have gone on. I mean, when you look at non-league level, step 3, step 4, step 5, or in certain jurisdictions where the economy of football hasn't developed as much as it might have in England or in Germany or France, you still see a 1-page player contract or a 2-page player contract. But if you look at an EFL contract right now, or even a conference contract where Martin and Greg and Mickey, when he was managing, would be able to tell you, the standard contract is already detailed. And then you've got your appendices where you put on your salary and your bonuses and all that sort of stuff. So the more variables you add into that with regards to data and how that might impact a player's incentives or a team's incentives, means a lot more work for us as well, which is not bad.
Yeah. Rob Tanner, I see a lot of the stuff that you guys on The Athletic write, and other journalists do as well, using the technology in terms of when you are dissecting where teams are going right and where teams are going wrong, the transitions, is it by playing down the left, playing down the right? How has that kind of changed how you as a writer, broadcaster, podcaster, how has that changed your business?
Enormously. I mean, before I joined The Athletic 3 years ago, I had no access to any of that, no real history of using data. It was all literally what you see on the pitch and the conversations you have with people around the game. And I still think there's a major part for that in journalism, but the data analysis, and we also use White Scouts as well to go in and have a look. I mean, for example, when...
So can anyone use White Scout?
Well, you have to be registered with them and pay. For example, when I knew that they're still going to bring in Tete, I was able to go in and have a look at all his best moments from his previous games and see if there's any trends in how he played. And we identified that he was particularly good at coming off the right flank and playing, making runs in behind defences, almost in the centre forward position, and the number 9 drops off. And we thought, that's really interesting. And we wrote about it in his debut at Villa. Sure enough, come off the right flank, went down the middle, passing to him, and he got his debut goal. He hasn't done that one since. I don't know why, but you can identify little traits of people's games and their strengths and weaknesses from it. You can also look at tactical formations and defensive shape and things like that. And it just enhances what you're writing. I mean, you've still got to go and watch the games and you've got to use it as a tool. You can't rely on it completely. You've got to use data and the White Scout as a way of just illustrating something that you've seen or you become aware of. So it's just a tool that you can't really rely on completely. You just have to still go to the games.
Well, let's bring in the old man on the panel. Sorry, the most experienced member of the panel. Sorry, Mickey Adams here. I've known Mickey a long time. It's all good. We're all friends.
We fell out one shot, didn't we?
No, he's Rob. I'm Jeff. I mean, we do look like a right said Fred tribute act. I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember that. But, yeah, you got a bit sweary in an interview we did. I think it was probably a poor question I asked, but I flicked a switch.
It was a poor question.
Yeah. And it wasn't live, thankfully, but he did start using industrial language. But fair play. A few hours later, he rang me up and sort of apologised, and there's not many people in the football industry who would actually do that. They'd be like, oh, they're journalists, they're big enough to look after themselves. But Mickey actually did that, and I had a lot more. I always had respect for you, Mickey, and had even more. So, as the most experienced person on the panel, you wouldn't have had these tools when you were playing, and perhaps towards the tail end of your management, you were using these. But I think Martin said about the eye test. I maybe correct about the eye test. When you look at a player, how important do you think getting that balance between looking at the stats and the videos and what you actually see yourself?
Well, I think that nothing beats actually going and seeing a player live. I think that there's a lot of chief scouts who will make recommendations to you with the greatest respect, Greg, but never really put their mark on it and say, yes, I'm. So I was always one of those types of managers that always went out and watched games of football live to see the players, his traits, even watch the warm-up. I used to watch the warm-ups. I thought that was always important to see if they were engaging with the coach, whether they were getting themselves ready mentally for the game. I could see that in the way they moved.
But don't players just warm up differently anyway?
In my era, yeah.
How did you warm up? Is it a pint or
no,
something?
listen, the coach told me what I needed to do, and I did it. I mean, people like Matthew Letizia, he used to just come onto the training ground and just smash balls into the back of the net, which I have to say was particularly good at. But when the game kicked off and we were talking about running stats, I was a hod carrier, so my stats were quite high. His weren't in terms of running distances and sprints and things like that. So, the technology has now moved on. I'm always I want to ask questions, and I think that when we look at the tools that are available now for players to showcase themselves, all I wanted when I was a player was the manager to pat me on the back at the end of the game and say, well played. That'd do. I wasn't really worried about how far I'd run, how many times I'd give the ball away, but it's now important too, because when you're signing a football player, you have all the stats available to you that, 90% of the time he gives the right pass. Doesn't necessarily say does he pass it forwards or does he go sideways and backwards. So there's a lot of percentages in that. I want the players to be honest, yeah. I want them to be honest when they put this highlight reel up, because as a manager, I have to tell you now that if a video or a bit of footage came to me as a manager, I think you've got about 30 seconds to impress. Seriously, because there's hundreds and hundreds of footage that Greg, as chief scout, will put on my desk and ask me to look at. And if you don't actually catch my eye, then move on quickly. And I know that's really sad, but it is because of the time constraints that you've got on you as a manager. So you have to really decide which players you want to see into your football club. And we use it as a tool to get players in, and you want to get the right players in. I mean, I can't tell you how many agents like Dev have come to me and said, I've got this 6'2" centre forward who's a battering ram, and I want you to watch him. And you go, well, that's just exactly what I want then. Brilliant. And then he walks through the door and he's 5'8".
You're looking up to him.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I want the boys to be honest in the data that they download. I want them to be honest. I mean, how many highlight reels has anybody ever seen, including you, Greg, and you, Martin, where the guys have put a pass where they give the ball away? Just don't do it. You know, so there has to be a bit of honesty amongst the boys to say, well, listen, you know, I didn't play particularly well in this game, and but I am good if you look at the rest of my highlights.
I'm interested, Greg, you know, when you're using this technology to look at players, you know, you might want to bring in Salford or now at Morecambe, when you go to the management teams and say, well, we've got these players, these are the stats, how do those kind of above you that make the final calls, how do they generally react to this stuff?
We're working sort of back to front really. So clubs are either led by the club or led by the manager. You know, there's two different ways that a club will recruit. So depending if it's manager led, then it's discussions that you need to have before you go in, looking at these tools and looking at the play. You need to know what a modern left back, right back, centre back looks like in the manager's eyes, not in my eyes, because it's got to. Any options that I bring in then have got to match in with what we've agreed beforehand. So we'll come to sort of 10 points probably on each position that we will be looking at for the players. So if I bring someone who doesn't tick the boxes for them, they shouldn't be off the table anyway. So any options that I bring forward should already be in the manager's eyes or the club's eyes, whichever one you're working for, what they're looking for. But I think these tools, like going back to before, I think it's for minimising risk. You know, whenever you sign in a player, there's always a risk. There is no exact science to signing a player, otherwise no one would make a bad one.
Greg, would also wages come into that category as well, as, you know, with the greatest respect, Morecambe can't compete with somebody like Ipswich.
100%. And so when we go through the sort of 10 playing styles or 10 characteristics that we would look for in each position, obviously then, as an information gatherer, which is what I am, basically, I need to, when I'm going to present it to the manager, I need to have that answer. So, yes, all this is great, can we afford him? There's no point bringing him to the table if he doesn't, I've not had a conversation with the agents, location, family, can we afford, you know, because there's more goes into it than just the player. There's certainly at the levels that we're working at as well. You know, wives, male job, we need to then move, children could be in school, it's all got to be added into the equation of whether we sign that player or whether we can afford to sign that player.
We're talking about various bits of technology here tonight, and obviously one of the main things that has come in recent times is VAR, which seemed like kind of a good idea at the time, and obviously has benefits and has negatives as well, and it's there to assist the officials. It's worth pointing out that both two lovely people on either side of me, Mickey and Martin, both assessors for referees, that's right, which if you're old enough to remember seeing these guys as managers on the touchline, who used to verbally stick the boot into the officials on a regular basis, poacher turned gatekeeper, Martin.
I don't know what you mean. Yeah, I was asked a few years ago to do that job. What it entails is basically, as a previous manager, player, coach, they wanted people that had those interests or those skills to watch the referee's performance. On the weekend, I was at Bournemouth versus Fulham. A referee called Peter Banks from Liverpool. He did a very good job. And then there was one decision on Sunday when he was working on the VAR at Stockley Park. And West Ham scored, which turned out to be the winning goal. So it was a major decision in the football match, perhaps possibly staying in the Premier League, which is worth like hundreds of millions. And Peter was there to do the lines on the screen that we watch, you know, when you're sitting on the sofa with 6 chocolate digestives and a cup of coffee on a Sunday afternoon. And Peter judged that by the tip of his finger that he was onside and the goal was correct. So it was a big decision. The VAR that you mentioned, it does play a big part. It is improving. They are getting better, in my opinion. And a couple of days ago, that was a big decision for West Ham. And they are very precise at that.
Do you think they're almost I'm just going, do you think with the offsides, they are almost guessing a little bit? Because it isn't, from people I've spoken to, there does seem to be a slight element of guesswork, depending on quite where the camera's on.
With the speed that it actually happens, that pass sometimes can come in, and it's not impossible, but it's so close, it's so tight, and as I just said a minute ago, it was basically the tip of his finger that he was onside. It was that close, that decision, and that could define West Ham staying in the Premier League. It is that close. So you can't imagine 30, 40 yards across the pitch. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, my big fear is that a lot of the referees now, and I won't mention names, Martin knows who they are refereeing, forgetting about on-field decisions and letting VAR decide the major decisions. So, in effect, they're bottling on-field decisions. Martin laughs, but this is the truth. They're bottling on-field decisions because they know that VAR will rescue them. You know, does that make sense? So, you know, so what they're actually doing is bottling that major decision and saying, well, VAR will rescue me if I've got it wrong. And I think that's wrong, because I think that's not what VAR was brought in to do. You agree, Martin?
I haven't looked at it from that point of view, in all honesty. It has changed for them from the ages of 16, 17, 18, 19, when they started in his career, because they were probably not very good at football. So they're going to be a referee. And they've always,
and sometimes not be very good at that, but you know, we need referees and assistants, else we wouldn't have games.
no, but there is a younger group coming through, Mickey, as well, isn't there? Because last year, I think 5 experienced referees have gone to work at VAR, and some of those 5 are actually coaching referees. There's a younger group coming through in their 30s that I think have done really, really well. They've gone under the radar, they've not had the criticism. And when the referees, we sit together and chat pre-game, the ideal scenario is no dramas, stay under the radar. They don't want to be spoken about, and if they get away with it, but they don't get criticised on Match of the Day by the super pundits, then they've had a good day. And I think,
but we've had a good day as well, Marty, because we don't have to do the writing up, do we?
No, you told me your missus does all yours anyway.
She's good with technology. What about goal line technology then? I mean, come on, let's, you know.
Well, I was going to bring this up. It's definitive, apart from one game, the Villa against your boys, Sheffield United, wasn't it? That was one where the technology.
But it's such a fantastic tool for the referee, because when they used to be debating the olden days of whether the ball had crossed the line or it hadn't, all the referee has to do now is he looks at his watch, and that clears everything up with the spectators. I mean, what referees have got to do? They've got to sell decisions not only to players, but they've got to sell it to 50,000 football fans in the stadium, and that's the hardest part for them. Goal line technology is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a big improvement, isn't it?
And it has, that they have it in the football league, in the championship, don't they? Goal line technology.
Me and Martin on a good Premier
I think they have it in the championship, but perhaps not League One and League Two. But this is, oh, is it just the Premier League? I thought there was some
Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I see it. I think it just is it in Scotland now as well. Top league.
Well, obviously, it's goal line technology and VAR. There has been talk about this maybe going down into the championship. I just wondered, from a media point of view, Rob, with VAR, does it make your job easier or harder? I mean, whatever happens in a game, there are always talking points. But with VAR now, does this sort of change the narrative when you're writing your pieces?
There's still controversies, there's still talking points, and there always will be when it comes down to somebody's opinion about what they've seen. When it's matters of fact, like all over the line or offside, even though sometimes it can be, I think it took 4 minutes to reach the decision, the West West Ham game. That's a long time for people to be sat waiting for a decision, not just the players, the fans in it. In fact, because we do see little replays in front of us on the press desk, but nobody else in the ground knows what's happening. They might be told what they're checking for. So that's an area that needs to be improved. And as the technology improves over time, and it will always evolve, I think those decisions will be quicker.
Jeff, sorry. With that one at West Ham, with Peter Banks, he was the referee that I was working with at Bournemouth, and then he had to work the next day on the VAR for the West Ham game that I was watching, and I was tempted to text Peter, who's at Stockley Park, and say, Peter, make sure that goal stands. So obviously I wanted West Ham to win. But what happened was, for the reason for the delay was the technician at Stockley Park had drawn the lines in the wrong place, which happened about a month ago. And
That's Palace, wasn't it, where they got it wrong? Yeah.
And they sacked him, didn't they, on the Monday, because they totally got it all wrong, and it was a game-changing decision. So the one at West Ham, 60,000 people, West Ham have scored, all the crowd have gone mad, all the players have gone bonkers, and then it goes to VAR, and we have to wait 4 minutes, as you rightly say. It went on for ages, and it killed all the atmosphere. I spoke to him on the way home and said, Pete, what was you doing? And he said, the technician got it wrong. He had to reset, redo it all, put it all back into place. But again, the decision was game-changing. It was the match-winning goal of the game. And so I feel that they got it right, even though the technician got it wrong. And I still think they should persevere with those moments. It is a drag when it happens.
Just goes to show that technology won't remove human error, because we're still seeing these incidents. And we've had a number of them this season. Obviously, I've put Leicester home the way, so we've got a number of these really tight, really tight decisions, and most of them have gone against Leicester this way. And literally, it's been like, if he clipped his toenail that morning, he probably would have been onside. You know, it's just down to that fine margin of error, and you can't take technology out of the game now it's in the game. You've got to stick with it and just work with it and improve it.
The players that you're involved with, are they broadly supportive of technology being used more and more?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think we find, like with everything in life, right? You find some people that are very much for it, and you find some people that are very much against it. But if we look at it from, I think one thing that everyone is unanimous on, and Martin kind of touched upon this in one way a few minutes ago when we were talking about game-changing decision, potentially staying in the division decision, which means money, right? Now, if a player has a goal bonus and their goals fall down, money's not going into their pocket, right? So there are certain things that all of the players are unanimous on, which is they want absolute clarity with regards to when their efforts are going to be rewarded on the pitch or not. And where VAR still has some discrepancies, some things that need to be ironed out, there is invariably controversy, right? And that can lead to some people going ardently against it, and some players saying, look, give it more time because it's going to make it better. Last time I was ruled offside, and now VAR is going to make sure that I'm not offside, and I'm going to get 10 grand more this season, so on and so forth. So to go right back to your point, yes and no. Some are for it, some are against it. But from a player perspective, of course you want to win the game and you want to win whatever trophy you're competing in. But there's always that individual element as well, thinking, right, goal bonuses, assist bonuses, team points bonuses, and how will all this technology impact what my take home at the end of the month is as well.
I'm thinking, Callum, with what you do here with the young players, you obviously don't have VAR. But what sort of technology do you have in terms of, I don't know, maybe using drones and other video equipment to be able to show to the players that they may or may not have been onside or offside?
The main one we use is video. We have access to 3 video cameras, and one of them can live stream now as well. But that's the main kind of access and tool that we use for the video analysis software. Obviously, that does get uploaded onto MatchMeeting as well, and further analysis and so on. But I think that's been the big thing. I think the biggest thing for me across the board is that technology is as good as the people that are using it as well, and how you want to use it, what you want to use it for. I think the main thing is that are you trying to improve something and develop something, and that's the hope of technology. But at the end of the day, like you're saying, VAR is still down to that human error or that human decision and what they're judging with what they're watching.
Johnny, sports science obviously is your back. This is, you know, a science that has come into the sport. What have you made of it?
I think it's been really interesting to hear, maybe not my views, because I've grown up with football when there was no technology essentially on the screen, but the students' views when they come and talk to me, which is usually every Monday after the Premier League matches. I've worked out which ones support which team, so I always poke them and roll them up a little bit. Chelsea lads can get some real rubbish from me currently. But I think there's like a broad sort of acceptance of it, that it's maybe it's all, as Rob said, it's going to be there forever, not going to change it. One of the students did say an interesting thing. He says, I think it's good, but I don't think it's applied correctly. Talking about it 4 minutes, you know, on that decision, the atmosphere going in the stadium. He says, I'm a fan, and I was bored. And he said, he was cricket lad, and he said, in cricket, the players ask for the VAR. So if they think it's a really bad decision, they'll ask for it. It's not up to the referees to then give a minuscule offside. You've got to back it, and if you win the decision, you get the decision back. You get to keep it. If you lose it, or you know make a frivolous appeal, and that's it for the rest of the game when you really might need it. So I think they're sort of both engaging in it, but also wondering, I wonder if I can make that better.
It obviously works well in cricket, but then cricket is a different pace kind of game. But in terms of having the 2 or 3 challenges that they have to try and use them wisely, in the Ashes a few years ago, when Australia used up one of their reviews, and then in the next over they could have, I think, got Ben Stokes out, and England managed to get over the line. So there is that little bit of jeopardy. So maybe there does need to be a few of these tweaks. Now, offside tends to be handballs and penalty decisions, etc. Sometimes, you know, we could sit here and all see the same decision and be completely split on whether it is a penalty or not. With the offsides, again, the assistant's eye seeing perhaps across the other side of the pitch where the ball is being played, and then has to work out where the attacking and defending players are. So, you know, they have got VAR. I'm just wondering, throwing out something quite maybe outrageous, how about just getting rid of offsides?
Jack, get another beer, mate.
Why not? Why not get rid of it?
Oh, Martin.
Tell me why. Convince me.
No, it's a great idea. When I was 10 or 11 years old, I was very, very lucky to go with my dad over to New York to do coaching. My dad just coached the coaches, and one evening we went to watch New York Cosmos playing against Tampa Bay Rowdies, and there was players like Pelé, Beckenbauer, Rodney Marsh, and the stadium was huge. There were about 70,000 people there. It was an unbelievable experience, as you can imagine, for a 10-year-old. And they played with an offside line on the 25-yard marker. And so Rodney Marsh, I swear, Rodney Marsh, he had his shirt hanging out, he had blonde hair hanging down, his socks around his ankles, no shin pads, and he really was the kind of, you know, playing the game. He never moved off that offside line, and the game was totally stretched out. And for me, it's a no-no. It just wasn't the same. There's no tackles, it's just passing around, it's just not the same.
Is there a way of improving this offside? Because that does seem to be the one that takes the longest to make decisions on. And then you see the players and you see the lines, and it says onside or offside, you look at it and you think, how the hell can you tell?
I have to tell you, these assistants, and Martin will tell you, we work with them closely, they are fantastic. Honestly, the real brave ones, I mean, they're told to keep the flag down if it's marginal. You know, but the brave ones, they stick the flag up. You know, they don't mind backing themselves in that sort of tight situation. And listen, you talk about offsides. We used to play a game when I was a player. I still play it sometimes with some of the boys, where you all have to be in the opposition's half to score a goal. Right? Now, when I played it, I used to be a defender. So when we were trying to score a goal, I used to have to run 50 yards up the pitch to get in the opposition half before a goal stood. Matthew Letizia, now this is how clever he was. He used to stand on the halfway line, and then when we were attacking, he used to jump 5 yards over the halfway line, and then when we were defending, he used to jump 5 yards over that way. But me, I used to do 50 yards this way to get in the half, and then get back to defend that way. So I think that's what you'll find, Jeff. I think it would be false football, man.
Anybody else fancy it now?
Jeff, sorry, just going back to the assistants and Mickey saying how they are brilliant, but they are all full time now, aren't they, Mickey? They're all full time, and they've all got coaches that work with the little groups. I think each coach has got 4 assistants. I had an assistant, the assistants coach with me on at the Bournemouth game at the weekend, and they go through every decision, every movement, every part of their work gets scrutinised to the finest. It's not just like in the old days, turn up and just chuck the flag up and down. It really is serious stuff, and I think it's a good career to go into. You know, it's I think they should do more, Mickey, for young players that don't quite, what you said earlier, fulfil the dream. I still think it's a good option is to take that route and go down into professional assistants and referees. I think it would be good to get people that are better educated in football from a young age and start them young.
Yeah, Martin, we were fortunate. We had long careers in the game, but you know, we try and say at the college that you know there's lots of other football opportunities. You know, in terms of job wise, you know, in a football club that you can aspire to. You know, it's not all about playing the game. You know, that ultimately is what they're all here for. They all want to be professional footballers, but you know, it's a very, very small minority that get to be professional footballers. And like you say, Martin, fantastic opportunity for them. Assistants, managers, scouts. Doesn't take a lot of brains to be a scout, to be fair. Sorry,
He's disrupted Renee.
We are friends.
Just going on to that point, I think it's something that possibly the PFA could get involved in. Like I said, there's lots of young players out there who, for whatever reason, don't quite make grade. And I do think refereeing could benefit from ex-players, you know, whether it's an injury or whatever it may be, just falling off the ladder. And it is a career now. It's a full-time career, you know, for these referees and linesmen. And I think, and I'm not just saying it should just be football people, but I think when you've got someone who's been in there and felt it and knows what a tackle is, and I think you might get better referees as well if there is something that can be done that way.
I'm not sure it's all. In the past, it's been considered sort of a sexy career, if you like. If you don't make it as a footballer, oh, it's okay, I can be a referee or can be an assistant. But it does seem to have a little bit more cachet about it now.
Well, that's probably because of the amount of money that they can earn. You know, it's.
But if it gets them into it, then that's great.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, who wants to go out in front of 60,000 and be abused and told that they're not very good? That's the danger.
Just on that, on a much smaller front, I mean, my youngest boy is 15, and I've seen, I think there's 4 in his team now who have done the referees course, and they see it as an adult finance is completely different. But on a Sunday or a Saturday, they can go and get 25 quid a game or whatever it is, which is decent money for a young lad to go out and get a couple of games in. And it's some of these young players, these young guys, who've taken interest in it, I think it'll only improve things.
And I think they're trying to fast track it now as well. Rather than having to wait till 28, 29, 30 before they get men's games and start getting moving, they've brought the age group right down so they're going to push it forward early so they can get refereeing at the top level when they're arguing now. Which we're seeing now in the Premier League.
Listen, Jeff, I guess what doesn't help is when you see Mitrovic push the referee at Old Trafford. You know, because that's going to happen on a park pitch somewhere.
Well, it does. We've seen quite a bit recently on social media videos of.
And that's not right. So the players have got a responsibility, and the managers, you know. Here's me criticising the manager for having to go to a referee. Never happened in mine.
No, it's not.
Or your day, Martin.
We shouldn't do it.
No, exactly. But, you know, we have to set an example, particularly in the Premier League. You've got to, you know, the Premier League is worldwide.
Just curious to think with that, I'm sure, you know, a number of you will have seen that game, Fulham at Manchester United, where penalty decision, the red card, and then obviously Mitrovic went in with the referee. We had briefly spoke about this, didn't we, Martin, earlier? You know, it's a red card, so it's a 3-game ban. It's not going to be a 3-game ban, is it? How significant do you think it's likely to be?
Well, like Nick just said, it's a global market, and he really did go for him, didn't he? It was a little bit more than just a sort of an arm on his shoulder or something. It was very aggressive. I think he's going to get. I'm not sure he's going to play again this season, to be honest.
What are we talking? 10 games? 10-game ban, maybe?
Probably 8, 10 games. I think that would be fair and right and reasonable because it sends out such a poor message to all young coaches, to young managers, and to young players. For me, it's just you can't have that involved. We're trying to encourage young referees to step up. Why would they want to put themselves through that for 25 quid? No chance.
I'm just wondering, you know, the young players that you deal with here, whether they see things in the Premier League, good things and bad things. So they might see people trying to do Rabonas or whatever the trendy things that the kids do nowadays, and of course the bad things as well with the manhandling of the referees. You know, how much do you have to say to them, yeah, okay, you've seen him try that, go and try that now, or you've seen something bad and we can't have that. How much do you have to sort of speak to them about that?
I think you definitely see things replicated, and I think players nowadays, particularly in the Premier League and across the world in football, are such role models to all of the kids. And I think particularly through technology now, as they only see snippets of sometimes the bad things or sometimes the good things, whether it's on a clip on YouTube or a clip on TikTok, whatever it is, that's what they're looking at. They're not looking at a full game of behaviour. And I think one thing for me that's really key, going back to the referees, is video kind of recording for referees on grassroots, because that's going to encourage more referees to get involved as well, because they'll at least feel more protected from that. So I think that's where technology can continue to help push the game forward.
I think when I'm sure us all here in life, really, we're all thieves and we're all always pitching ideas and twisting them and changing them into what we can make better for ourselves. I think you only need to look down the road and look at rugby league, you know, and you look at the respect that players and coaches and managers have got for these referees. They all call them sir, for a start. And the 10-yard rule, I mean, they did it in football for a little spell. I think they tried it in the Coca-Cola Cup many years ago. And I remember being as a player, if you went and had a go at the referee, he would just move the free kick forward 10 yards. And I was at Bolton at the time, and I remember Colin Todd talking more about our discipline in terms of how we spoke to the manager before the game than he'd ever done in the past 20 games, because it was a focal point. It was important for that game, but it should have just been that game. But like I said, when you watch rugby league and rugby union, the size of some of these guys are like 6'4", 19 stone, and they just stand with their hands behind their backs and show the respect that they do is something that could be taken over.
Rob, from a media point of view, do you feel that you're writing more or less about officials' decisions?
Well, it's a bit difficult for me to comment because I don't really do match reports. We do different pieces that are based on little elements or something we spotted in a game and expand. So it's not necessarily looking at those really controversial moments, but I feel just from watching the games that there is just as many talking points and controversies in a game. VAR hasn't removed many of them at all, really. I mean, it's only just, as I said, a matter of fact. So the referees are still under scrutiny, if not more, because we're having game pause and we're watching their decisions back over and over and over again, and so it's probably put even more of a spotlight on the referees.
Yeah, but if you doing the sports contracts and doing the lawyer stuff, but also with your work as an intermediary, if you've got players who are getting into some kind of hot water, how difficult was that for you to deal with? I'm sure you had just complete angels who never did anything wrong on your books, but I'm guessing there probably were times where there were some of these controversies.
100%. They are far from angels, unfortunately. And I'll go primarily to my experience in the past, and I can make a few touch points with regards to the players that we now work with through their agents, because we're not handling their careers directly.
Obviously, we want you to name names for all these, these people involved, because that would be fun.
But no, we had some really challenging profiles, and it is difficult to be in that position, because as a player representative, what I ended up finding myself doing was not only being representative of the player, although I had a power of attorney and I might go into a negotiation on behalf of the player, but I'd end up being the player's brother, I'd end up being the player's father, in a sense, right? Where you're having to scold them, to guide them, to tell them off, to encourage them. And it was even more challenging in some instances when I was still a relatively young person, and I was dealing with players who were coming to the end of their careers and they were older than myself, and I'm saying, look, this is not the right way to go about your life, and you've got to start thinking about what you're going to do when you finish playing, because it's a challenging transition. What do you want to do once you hang up your boots? And ultimately you're dealing with a player who might be 35, 36, and all they care about is Saturday night after the game and where they're going, what they're drinking, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, that has an impact on what they do on the field as well. So I think it was a challenge in the sense that I got into it in a more rudimentary way, thinking about how I could assist the player, represent the player, generate income for them and also for myself. And I ended up becoming a mentor, a brother, a father. And now what we tend to do is, as we're not handling the players themselves, we have to handle the agents. What I tend to do is just give them guidance and advice and say, look, this is what we would strongly recommend you do. If we spot something in one of the stable of the agents, we'll say, look, that player over there, I've seen this before, you might want to have a chat with him, you might want to get the club involved, you might want to get head of recruitment, someone like Greg involved to have a little word in their ear. But we step away a lot more now, because ultimately I've got to make sure that my position is as the legal advisor, and the legal advisor alone. I can't try and blur the line in any way, because then that dilutes the legal advice.
And obviously, we've got a number of people here who've got family members at Brooke House. I just slightly going away from the subject of technology, but I just wonder how important it is nowadays for the parents and family members to be sort of educated, if you like, on what information they should give to their children about the contracts that they might sign or the money that they might get, just in terms of advice. Or what sort of stuff do you talk to the kids about, or do you leave that, or is that a separate entity to you?
Listen, it's a minefield, obviously. I think that what we're finding at the school is that there's a lot more agents visiting the school and talking to the children and to their parents, offering advice, some good, some not so good. But we tend to take a step back from that unless they want our honest opinions. What match meeting does for them is it offers them the opportunity to watch the videos as well as the games, Callum, doesn't it? So, you know, they're not so delusional that, you know, I remember when I was a young apprentice at Gillingham at 16 years old, I left home. I never had a bad game because I used to ring my dad up from the telephone box and he said, how have you done? I played well today, Dad. It's not like that anymore because match meeting offers the parents the opportunity to actually see the game. So they're not quite delusional as they might be just listening to their child. Because everybody wants to know that their boy's doing or their girl's doing so well. Callum, you might touch on that?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think one thing that Matchroom provides is like almost open book, particularly with the parents. I think when you are having them a meeting with the player, or when you're having a meeting with parents and the player, whatever the situation is, you're hoping that they've actually got that little bit of background and understanding of how their son or daughter's progressing. I think that's why we give feedbacks after every game as well. So it's not just a video and watch the game. Obviously, yeah, they can have their opinion on it and view the game from that side, but there's a feedback from us so they know how we think that their son or daughter's performed as well. And I think that just provides content.
Do you put that feedback onto their laptops, or do you give that face-to-face verbally?
Both. So we give one obviously on the laptop through the match meeting system that they get to be able to read. We look to try and do that if possible in kind of 24 hours after the game. But then after that, we then also the next day do an analysis where we do go through as a team and we'll discuss bits around individual feedback as well as the team feedback as well.
But Martin, we've all had delusional players, haven't we? I'll tell you a story. Robbie Savage. I took Robbie Savage down to Brighton. He was having a tough time at Derby County, and Paul Gill wanted him out of the building. So I took him down to Brighton, and funnily enough, we played Leicester City, and down at the Withdean Stadium, which was an athletic stadium. We were losing 2-0 at half time, and I took Robbie Savage off. We won the game 3-2. The next morning, I get a knock on my door, and it's Robbie. I say, come in, Robbie. Gaffer, I just want to know why you took me off. Because all my mates said I was man of the match. I said, yes, you were for Leicester, but you're actually playing for Brighton now, son. So that's how delusional some players can be as well.
Were you delusional in your career, Martin?
Oh God, yeah. What do they say about everyone thinks their wife's Miss World, don't they? But you know, that's not true.
Mine is. No,
it's something that's just jumped into my small brain a few minutes ago. A couple of months ago, I was at West Ham at the London Stadium, pre-game, can't remember which Premier League game it was, and I was speaking to one of my old teammates who was a young coach, you know, similar to the ages of the chaps here. And we were talking about one of his young players who now plays for England. And when he was the under-16s manager, they had to write a list of the best 8 players that were going to be given scholarships. And the chief exec was in on the meeting, the manager was in on the meeting, and the under-21 manager was in on the meeting. All the big hitters were in there. And he said, we started to put this together. He said it was mine and my assistant's choices to fill out the 8. And they had 12 players. They've done number 8, they've done number 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and they had one player, one slot for one more player. The last player to join was called Declan Rice. He paused as he told us this story. He was one of my teammates. He said the thing with Declan, he said it was his attitude, it was his desire, and he did grow. He said he did grow, but it was his desire to train, do extra. Even when he didn't play well, he kept going. And as time went by, he just overtook the other 7 that were above him at under 16s, and he just went past them all. He said, and it was after about 6 months, he started to play in the under 21s rather than the under 18s. And then in the under 18s, under 21s, he was looking like he was the best of the under 21s. And it all happened for Declan Rice all in about 8 months. This wasn't over 2 or 3 years. It was that quick. He was nearly let go. Because at under 14s, he'd been let go by Chelsea. He'd been kicked out of Chelsea because he was no good. So I think you spoke about fulfilling a dream earlier, right at the beginning. And it's fantastic, all these bits and pieces that are in place that support you now and help you and develop and for young players to evolve with education and knowledge and the skills that we spoke about at the beginning. But that individual desire and that focus and that passion and that will to be the best, I think that also does come from the parents. They also have to be part of that package if the young players that you're involved with are going to make it and step up to that next grade. So I've jumped across a bit there, but I think it's a very poignant story for everyone.
Because people develop at different ages, so there might be some players here that it takes them a few more years to progress. Jamie Vardy is an obvious example of somebody who you've worked closely with and watched over a period of time, because there must have been at some point in those non-league years where, yes, he was scoring goals, but perhaps never thought that he would get further opportunities in the Premier League. Maybe, obviously, played in the Premier League and won the Premier League, etc., etc. But he's a great example to young players.
Well, yeah, but he was released by Sheffield Wednesday and gave up the game for a while. Started knocking around with his mates, and he started to play with some of his friends again. He started to develop that love for the game again. Went to Stockbridge, never had any aspirations of being a pro at that time. He was just enjoying his football, but it slowly developed, and obviously he's ridden through the non-league ranks. And Halifax, he started scoring a lot of goals, and then he went pro, and it just snowballs. And I think the secret of his longevity probably is because he was a late bloomer in some respects. He didn't have all those miles in his legs, all those gains in his legs from very early on. He was just enjoying his football, and that love of football comes across. I mean, he might not be the most technically gifted player you've ever seen, and he's certainly not, classically academy coached. He's a very natural player. But it's just his enthusiasm and you can't see that through stats and technology. We've been talking about stats, technology, and stuff like that, but that comes from the personality, and you only get to see that when you meet the person you see them play.
I think, Johnny, so sports science can tell you a lot of things, but then sometimes we were talking earlier about what you see with the eye, and there might be some video clips, but what is in a player's mind can be hugely important.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. What you said, Mark, story about Jamie is that all this technology it doesn't provide certainty. Nothing is certain in football, but what it might do is provide maybe a certain amount of clarity. Why are you not reaching the level you should be, or what is that person doing? If we were to go up to Mickey's story about Letitia, is somewhat immobile running style. If that was what we measured him on, you'd never have got a gig at all with it. And is it something up there? How do you cultivate that? If we knew that, we'd all be millionaires, billionaires. But I think, again, like I said earlier, it's about giving these lads and girls autonomy and understand this is their technology, this is how you use it, and this is what it means. And if you can understand what it means and why it's important and how you can use it, how you can better yourself, then that's a step in the right direction. And if you want to use it to develop, then you should be able to when you can.
This guy's been saying, some things are, a gamble, like appointing managers or sacking managers or bringing in players. And Greg, I think did you go from the third division to the top division? Was it when you signed for Bolton, was it?
Yeah, I was a young boy at Wigan, made my debut at 17. Was 19 then when my hometown club, which was Bolton, just got promoted to the Premier League. But yeah, it was a heck of a jump. I had to learn a lot in a short space of time. I didn't play a lot of games when I went to Bolton. I was still young, and it was at a time where we invested quite a lot of money. But yeah, I had to learn on my feet and learn really quick from being at a League Two club that was struggling to stay in the league to something like that far.
Can I just ask a question? I mean, there's lots of parents here, Greg, and there's some players in here as well. Just exactly, you know, when you go and watch a game of football, what are you looking for? What are the attributes that you're looking for?
Well, it goes back to before, you know, myself and the manager, as it works here now in a moment, we have set KPIs for each position that what we're looking for.
What's a KPI?
Key performance indicator. So it's
Interesting to see whether you knew it.
yeah, so they're all agreed pre-season. We know what, or at the end of the season, we know what we're looking for. We know what Malcolm or whichever we're working for, what right back, centre back, centre midfield, what it should look like.
In terms of what, size, speed?
It can be everything.
Okay.
Everything that the manager's looking for. So our manager, he wouldn't sign a small fullback, for instance. He likes people who defend far post quite well. He likes someone to get forward, athletic, probably not too different to what a lot of other people. But we sign off on that at the beginning of the season. So every game I'm going to, whether it be an under-23 game, whether it be a first team game, whether it be a non-league game, I'm looking for the same sort of characteristics. We're just going back to the technology. As much as data is brilliant, you know, because it can bring you so much information in one click. You know, it is excellent. There are some things that you need the eye for, you know, in terms of that can't be measured by data. Like we spoke before about it, bravery, you know, bravery, not just bravery in terms of, you know, bravery on the ball, when you're going to receive it in pressure situations, in games, big moments in games. Are you still going to be as brave as you was when there is no pressure? How people react to mistakes, which is another big thing for people go under. Game management, you know, how you're going to manage that game with different parts in the game, when you're winning, when you're losing. How do you react when the manager's having a go at? All of these sort of characteristics can be measured by data, but you need the naked eye. And you've got to go out and you've got to get amongst it, and you've got to see it for yourself.
The word character is massive, isn't it? I think in football, would you have players around that perhaps you thought you weren't 100% sure about, but they brought something to the dressing room?
I always tell a story about assistant managers. You know, assistant managers will always pick the right team, but it's not necessarily the team that a manager would pick, because he knows the characters that he's got in the dressing room. So basically what I'm trying to say about that is, I look at Jamie Vardy, I think he's a character in the dressing room. I think he's a leader of the dressing room. He's not playing at the moment.
Yeah.
Brendan, there's something not quite right between the relationship between Brendan and Jamie Vardy. Now, how's that been to the detriment of Brendan Rodgers and the team's performance, because he's not picked it?
I think so, and I think you'll see tomorrow night Mike Sale, and that will bring him straight back in, because he is that character, he has got that experience, and he's itching to get involved, because obviously it's tough times, and he feels he's a leader, one of the few leaders left there now from, you know, the success they've had over the last few years. So absolutely, I think that's a factor.
Just wondering, as we're going to wrap things up very shortly, just wondering if did you have something to add on?
If I could.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, want to make this question to Greg earlier. I'd just like to flip it around, if I may, in regards to what, as a head of recruitment, you wouldn't look for. And the reason I ask that is, as legal counsel, we can only work on what we're instructed. So we might be told by an agent or by a set of parents, look, this club wants my son or my client. I want you to make sure you go and get this amount of money, these bonuses, etc., etc. Sometimes we receive the most ludicrous instructions, and we've got to advise them that this is not realistic, but the insistence is still there. So for maybe some people that may not be as well versed in football in the room, or some people that are still getting into it, they've got young children that they want to push into the industry, or some agents that are trying to get into it, as a head of recruitment, what sort of things would really put you off when it comes down to contract negotiations?
I think the ones who come in too high too early, it's just the unrealisticness that puts people off, in terms of my position. We all want to get, if we like a player and he fits what we're looking for, we want to get a deal done. It would be of no benefit to us to not try and get that deal done as best we can, as quick as we can. So it's when agents, intermediaries are unrealistic, knowing, because you've always got to know who you're pitching to. And as we spoke before, I'm all, we don't have tons of money. When I was at Salford, the shoe was on the other foot. We could fish in different waters to what we're fishing in now. So it's always been the unrealistic ones in terms of finance, like the contract and bonuses. I know there was a famous quote that Harry Redknapp said when he was signing, I think it was Jermaine Defoe. I think he was signing for 55 grand a week, and then his agent asked for a goal bonus, and Harry Redknapp said, "Put him on signing for." To not score goals, that's his job. That's why I'm giving him 55 grand a week. He'll score goals, but they're the ones as well, the add-ons. The big. It always feels like it's just a bit more. We'll agree on the then a bit more. So they're the things that put me on.
Thanks. Just wondering what the most, as a manager, Martin, I'll ask you as well, Nick, the most ridiculous requests you had from players or agents when it came to contract negotiations or signing play?
I was working at the time at Brentford Football Club, and we'd heard about a player that was playing for a little club right next to Heathrow Airport, Yedding Football Club. We just had a cup run, and they played against Queen's Park Rangers in the third round of the FA Cup. And had a little centre forward who was lively. He was Vardy-like, who run with energy and enthusiasm. So I had a chief scout or head of recruitment. His name was John Griffin, and he worked in football in and around London. He had a fantastic knowledge of players. And I was going to watch another reserve game somewhere in London, and John Griffin was going to watch Yedding to see this centre forward that someone tipped him off about. After half an hour, I got a text. "Gaffer, we've got to sign him." I've never had that. Doesn't normally happen, does it, Mickey? Normally it's the next day. How did the game go last night? Or on the way home, maybe you might ring 10:30 on the M25 with a packet of crisps. And Griff, what's going on? He said, "Gaffer, he's got an hat-trick." He said, "There's loads of clubs here. We've got to sign him." So at half time in my game, instead of going into the tea lounge, I went round the back into the car park and I rang my chairman, a guy called, I don't know if you've heard of him, a guy called Greg Dyke. That guy, he's only the boss of the BBC, and he was my boss. I don't really speak to me very often. We need 15 grand, and I want to buy him tonight. I've not seen this lad play, but I'm going on my scout, get him. Anyway, we signed him. We'd done the deal that night, about 12 o'clock at night. And DJ Campbell came into Brentford the next day, and he's got tattoos all over his neck. His shirt was down here, his tie was down here. He bounced in like he had gold chains everywhere. And I'm thinking, we're in the boardroom at Brentford, which is like one of those long oak tables. He comes in with his agent, he sits down, the agent sits down. I've got my Brentford tie on, white shirt, done up to the top, black blazer, looking absolutely nasty. Morning. The agent said, right, he's looking for £1,000 a week, £200 a goal, and if he gets this amount, his money's going to go up to that amount, and And I had my folder, and I just went like that, and stood up, and said, thank you very much. He's going to work here, and I'm going to give him an opportunity. This would be the salary. £300 a week, £200 a goal, If he does well, I promise you, I will get him a big contract. I knew DJ Campbell was driving a white Ford Transit with a delivery company just around the corner from Heathrow Airport, taking parcels from Heathrow all over London. He's sitting there with his gold teeth shining, and his dream, this is his opportunity in life. The agent stood up and said, "Are you allowed to say F off?" The agent told me to say, "See you later, we're going." And I stood there and thought, oh no. John Griffin, my coach, my head of recruitment, said, uh-oh, let's hope they come back. 5 seconds later, DJ Campbell came back in the room on his own. And I thought, thank God for that. I said, DJ, I'm going to give you an opportunity. I said, you've got to take it. And he said, I'm taking it. The agent came back in and said, that's the worst thing you've ever done. I shook his hand. Anyway, 5 months later, after DJ scored 2 goals, I think DJ was 20 at the time, he scored 2 goals in the 5th round of the FA Cup against Premier League Sunderland at home. A few days later, we sold DJ to Birmingham City for 1 million, and his basic went up from 300 a week to 3,000 a week. On the Saturday, he was sub for Birmingham away at a place called Arsenal at the Emirates. He came on for the last 20 minutes, and the Birmingham fans gave him the away team player of the match. At 5:30, I'm still managing Brentford, of course. 5:30, DJ's on the phone. Gaffer, you'll never believe it. Man of the match, and you'll never guess what prize it is. And guess what? I said, what did you get? A bottle of champagne? He went, no. He said, I've got a week in a villa in Portugal at the end of the season. I went, what? He said, yeah. I said, DJ, that's my villa, mate. And I'm going instead of you. You're going to donate that to me as a thank you. And he went, yeah. So I got a week's holiday in DJ Campbell's villa for his 20 minutes as a sub for Birmingham against Arsenal. And that is probably one of the craziest negotiations I've had.
I should have just said before, good start, that's a word around the doors, that's a good story. Before we ask you that same question, when you were Leicester manager, and Milan Mandaric was the owner, chairman, what have you, didn't he sign players that he wanted rather than the players that you wanted? Or is this too long a story to go into?
I will try to be quick with this story. Martin, we have a right back. I can bring the right back to you. I said, oh yeah, where's he from? He said, it's from Iran. Sure, watch video. I watched the video, and he's marking, the right back is marking a guy called Ronaldo.
Original Ronaldo.
The Ronaldo, the good one. The good one, not the one that's a bit dodgy now, but the good one. He's good enough for years, Martin, he's good enough for us. Okay. The game is being played, I found out, 2 o'clock kickoff in a country called Qatar. Before they had the air conditioning stadiums, it's like 120 degrees in mid-season. There's this game between these 2 countries, and Ronaldo didn't run either side of the halfway line by 5 yards. It was just too hot. It was too hot for everybody. You know, we've just seen all the stadiums get aircon, but there was nothing. It was too hot for any of them. 0-0, nothing happened. Anyway, I went to the Walker Stadium that night to meet this lad coming in from wherever. He's come up the stairs, come through. There's about 4 blokes coming towards me, and the one in the middle of the 4 blokes is about that high. I thought it was a jockey. Martin, please meet, what's his name, Kaibi. Hassim Kaibi. So I said, hello, mate. And he looked at his agent, or his own interpreter, he didn't even know what hello was. And I thought, I'm in trouble here, because I can hardly speak English, and he can't even say hello. So it's like, Oh, okay. We took him to the training ground next day, and compared to the other players, he was like, I think you spoke about the size of players when you do your remits. Playing in the championship at that level with Leicester, you couldn't have a fullback that was like 5'5", 5'6". And the thing is, he rings you in the honour, Martin, how's Kenny be looking? I said, not very good, he's too small. He says, we're going to play Saturday. No, he's crap. Well, he sacked me 3 weeks later because it was those types of comments. In the end, I just sort of went, I ain't playing him, and I didn't play him. Perhaps I should have played them. I don't do that.
So what about you, Mickey, in terms of?
The only thing I can think about, Martin, is that long table at Brentford in the directors' room. I got sacked there.
Did you?
Yeah.
How many times have you been sacked?
Oh, what? That's been justified.
You know, when they call you in, everyone's shouting at you and they go, get out of our club, you're useless. And then you know the phone call's coming from the chief exec, comes up on your fucking mobile, and there's a text message, can you see me in the morning at 9 o'clock? You know you're getting the sack. You don't sleep all night, you drive there, get there early, you walk in, that big long table, they don't even look at you, do they? They don't even look at you, they don't talk to you, they say, you're finished. That's it, isn't it?
Did you replace Mickey at Leicester as manager?
No.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I mean, it's a hard act to follow, obviously. Yeah.
You know what I did good at Leicester?
Well, you were there for 4 games, so I mean, I can't wait to hear. Come on.
Nothing. No, the only good thing I've done at Leicester, and they still joke about it, seriously now, the first time I went in there, there was no concrete in the car park. It was just like potholes and puddles, you know, there was no lines, there was no back, just park anywhere. So I went in and said to the owner, Mr. Mandrick, used to be at the training ground every day, you need to tidy this training ground up. There's no hanging baskets. There's no hanging baskets. And there's no flower beds. These flower beds should be yellow and blue. The hanging baskets, when you walk into the building, should be yellow and blue. We're coming into Leicester City. He put concrete down. He put the white lines down. So all the senior players had the parking spaces at the front. Then the young pros were at the back. And then the apprentices were at the back. And all the hanging baskets got put out. So whenever I do go back to Leicester now, the groundsman always comes over to me and says, Martin, we've still got those hanging baskets. I mean, still. So when they won the Premier League, I think I played my part in Leicester winning the Premier League.
11 years.
And you all thought football management was hard, yeah?
Good for the field, good factor.
So in terms of players, agents coming in,
I just had one bizarre thing at Sheffield United where a player told me that he couldn't train on a Sunday because he had to go and see his kids. He was divorced from his wife, and the only time he saw his kids was on a Sunday. Bearing in mind we were third bottom of the table, fighting for our lives in the Championship. Me, local boy, Sheffield lad, going back to Sheffield United. Didn't get a win in the first 17 games. He was just coming back from injury, and I said, I need you. We're training on Sunday morning, and he refused to train. And he was on over £1 million a year. Refused to train, and it was in his contract there that he didn't train on a Sunday. There you go.
oh, who was it?
Gary Sanderson, but don't tell him I told you.
Wow.
6'4".
Right, listen, just before we wrap things up, I just want to go around the panel who have been absolutely excellent tonight. The future of technology in football, what do you want to bring in? What do you want to get rid of there? You don't have to answer both of them, or you can just do one thing. You might just say, get rid of AR, gone.
I like the ideology behind the AR. I like the ideology behind a lot of the things that are coming in. What I would like to do is to make sure that we have clarity and consistency, not only for what happens on the field with VAR, with things like White Scout, whatever it is, but also to make things off the field a lot more simple, a lot more succinct. It makes our job easier, it makes the job of the chief execs easier, the managers, and everyone else within the football industry. So I would like to see VAR stay personally, but I would like improvements. I would like upskilling of all of the individuals that work with the VAR system and everything else, because ultimately the only way these things will grow and improve and evolve over time is with education. So I like technology. I think we can take examples from rugby, the way we handle things in rugby, cricket, the review system, even in tennis they utilize the review system. We can't lose sight of that. It's here to stay. We just need to harness it in the best way.
I'm excited about the future with technology. I went down and did a feature at IBM to test their virtual reality, which will be coming into the professional game. What you could basically do is put on a headset, hold the gloves, and you could actually go into a game. And the tool is used so you can go back into any game and you can see what you did right, what you did wrong, all in real time around you. And it was incredible. I mean, the one game they showed me was Leicester-Liverpool, and Liverpool scored from a set piece, and you could stand next to Casper Schmeichel where he stood at that moment and see what could he have done differently, what could he line his wall up better, was somebody lost their marker, and they can just relive those moments. It's in its infancy at the moment, but I think they certainly think it's got a future in the game. And I recently went down to the new training ground. It's incredible, the technology down there. Even in the restaurants, there's a screen with a graph on all the players' names on. And that's what's that? And that's basically that assesses how hard they've worked in that training section, and therefore how much food they can eat to refuel afterwards. And that's just one example.
That's the yeah.
Yeah, that's a C grade. All the way around that complex is technology, and it's just that's the future. That's where it's going, and I can see they all have a virtual reality room in there in the next few years, I'm sure.
And augmented reality as well.
I want more transparency. So I want to hear from referees during the game. I want to.
What happened, mic'd up?
Yeah, I want them mic'd up. I want the football supporters in general to understand why they're making decisions, why VAR are coming to the conclusion that they're coming to. Football supporters in general, half of them, with the greatest respect, don't understand the rules of the game. So I want them laws of the game. Yeah, sorry, mate. And I'll give you an example. You can be offside in your own half. So if you start off in an offside position and then you come over the halfway line and pick up the ball in your own half, the free kick is given, the offside decision is given from inside your own half, and that's where he touches the ball. So a lot of fans go, he's taking that. Why? That can't be offside. He's picked the ball up from his own.
But he was coming back from an offside.
Coming back from an offside decision, and that's why they don't understand. So I want more transparency. I want them to understand the laws of the game. Yeah, thank you.
Cal?
I agree with all the points so far. I think I mentioned it earlier, and I think it's a big bit for the future of the game. I know they're starting to try and do it, but video technology for referees in terms of the cameras to actually support young referees and grassroots referees, because more and more we're seeing it, more and more with our games as well, but actually these games are struggling to get officials, and without officials we don't have the game that we've got. So I think that's a really important one for me.
Sorry?
These are all the quite serious answers, so I'm going to hope I make it a bit more trivial, but give me back paper tickets and programs. Stop printing them on my phone. You want that little keepsake. I can understand why we do it, because the environment is cost cutting, but give me a proper program and a ticket any day so I can put it on my wall. Still got tickets from when I went as a kid in my drawer. I don't have screenshots. So give me a paper ticket.
But I'm not sure that it's going to come back in any way, shape or form, because obviously, particularly the younger people in the room, it's all about the QR codes, isn't it? And using that everywhere you go rather than having loads of paperwork, and I suppose for the environment as well, as you say. But it'd be nice certainly to have some of those tickets that like cup finals and major games and everything. And Greg?
Yeah, I think probably just backing up what guys have said, really. I think VAR as an idea and as a process is, we all want to turn up the games and see the correct decisions and the right results, done for the right reasons. But I think it's, like I said, we want to know how we come to some of these conclusions and these decisions. So being a little bit more involved in that and being more transparent and us being able to live that moment as well, rather than 4 minutes of silence. Let us be part of it. Let us be part of why you come to that decision. But I think it's the idea of the process. I think is good. It's just the end bit at this moment in time. We want to know why and how we come to the decision.
Martin?
I think an interview after the Premier League games with the referee an hour after the end of the fixture, where he explains his decisions to all of us, and it's clear, and if he has to turn around and say, well, you've got that one wrong, so be it. But I think there should be more communication for the referees. At the moment, they're not allowed to say a word.
Agree with that? As someone who works on the refs?
Definitely, yeah.
It'd be good for them as well, I think, Mickey, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, half the time when we get into the referee's room, half an hour after they get in, they've all got their stories together. You know, all the officials, they've all been texted by their mates.
You don't like them, Mickey, do you?
I don't know.
You don't like refereeing?
Can I just say as well, Jeff is a very modest man. It was his 50th birthday yesterday. He also is a DJ in Ibiza. And he wishes that he was there tonight. So can we have a round of applause for Jeff, please? 50th birthday.
I know, I'm about 60. Listen, it's been fantastic to hear from all the people on the panel tonight, some really good insight. And I hope that as we finish things off here, you will just give everybody a huge round of applause for coming here tonight. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for coming.